Welcome to the broadcast, my dear fruits. It's very nice to see you. Thank you for joining me. I have a little whisper to share with you. Just a little one. It's rather cryptic in tone, but I might be able to elucidate a little more in the coming days. So I'm sharing it with you in the spirit of goodwill. Take it or leave it. It's regarding the Duke of Sussex's mooted visit with the King in mid-September, and I realise parts of the press are encouraging this rumour. Other quarters are dismissing it and poo-pooing the idea. It's my information that there is a tug of war, a gentle tug of war is the way that it was expressed to me behind the scenes. Nothing highly dramatic, a sort of power struggle, if you will, to do with the dynamics of family relationships. And as a private family visit, please do understand that whatever you hear one way or the other on this subject wouldn't really come in the form of any official confirmation or denial from the palace, because it's private family business. So do bear that in mind. But I will share the whisper that was shared to me from an impeccably placed royal source associated closely with the royal household. And these are the words from that source. And we do have to read a little bit between the lines here, my dear. And I can't be extraordinarily specific because matters of discretion and protecting the source. Balmoral is a haven and a retreat. His Majesty's interest is always in preserving its equilibrium and harmonious atmosphere. Then there are a couple more sentences that I'm not at liberty to read at this moment in time. Then, this is interesting. Similar measures were introduced in the immediate wake of the late Queen's death. Well, we all know what happened in the immediate wake of the late Queen's death. Meghan was blocked from Balmoral. She was barred. Your name's not down, you're not coming in, my love. More specifically, I should say that the Sussexes as a couple, the idea of them as a couple attending, was dismissed. But by and large, King Charles didn't want her there, Queen Camilla didn't want her there, the Princess Royal didn't want her there. The late Queen wouldn't have wanted her there, otherwise she would have been given permission to come, and Harry would have been encouraged to bring her, that she would have been embraced naturally into the fold. She was not, despite Harry's protesting. As he told us in Spare, it's one of his very few recollections that rings a bell of truth. The King did not want her there and told Harry as much. And as my source says, similar measures were introduced in the immediate wake of the late Queen's death. So similar measures are under consideration for this meeting, which my sources tell me was proffered as an idea by the Sussex camp, and certainly not at the intimation of the royal household. So you can take it or leave it. You can take it with a pinch of salt. I encourage you to do so. But I am sharing a whisper from an extremely immaculate source, just to give an indication of the undercurrents, what is going on beneath the surface of the placid and beautiful lakes at Balmoral. And it was a beautiful sight at Balmoral to see our monarch in his role as King Cosy Socks. It's our wonderful King Cosy Socks being greeted by adoring crowds. They were so kind to the King. And also it was a joy to see the cutest little Shetland pony in the world that we all love very well, Corporal Cruachan. Yes, he heralded the arrival of the monarch, and Corporal Cruachan is that naughty Shetland pony that disgraced himself in the presence of Her late Majesty. Do you remember? Can you imagine taking a great big dump right next to the Queen, the late Queen? Can you imagine it? Well, that's what Corporal Cruachan did. And he left a great big steaming pile of turd for her. But she is, or was, a woman of the country, wasn't she, my dear? So she wasn't perturbed, but it was still rather a disgrace. But Corporal Cruachan wasn't the only cutie in town, because Major Johnny was there, or Lord Lieutenant Johnny, whatever he is these days, the King's equerry. He'll always be Major Johnny to me, my dear. And he was wearing new attire, wasn't he? It was nice to see him in a new suit. We haven't seen this one. I haven't seen it before anyway. You might have done. As nice as he looks in a kilt, it was good to see him in new attire. I know that many of you appreciate Johnny Thompson, and many of you have commented saying how similar he is to William. in the face and also in his presence. And it is true, isn't it? And it's rather funny to have little flights of fancy about whether or not they're related. Of course, it's all silliness, but Sophia Mashish said, he looks like William. I'm inclined to believe the rumours that he is King Charles's son. Really, my dear? Really? That would be wonderful. Johnny and William would make a formidable team. Well, they certainly would, wouldn't they? Could you imagine? Could you imagine if he was switched at birth with Harry? That would be wonderful for us all, wouldn't it? That would solve the problem. It would take Harry out of the line of succession. He would have to surrender his dukedom, and we'd have a new Duke of Sussex in the form of Johnny Thompson, who would make a fine brother. Isn't it tragic and sad that he makes a finer brother and finer son figure, if you will, to the king than Harry? Isn't it absolutely heartbreaking? I think it really is. Harry's 38, Johnny's 39, I believe. So, well, anything's possible, I suppose. But the thing is, yes, he looks like William, doesn't he? So similar to William in the face. But William looks like Diana. He doesn't look like Charles at all, does he? I don't see much of Charles at all in William's face, although I do catch the odd flash in expression and mannerism. I see Charles in his hand movements, actually. His hand movements. Harry has that in common as well. Harry, although he hates the fact he has more of his father's look, not James Hewitt, I'm talking about the king. He has more of his father in him than his mother. There's no Diana in Harry's face. Sometimes I'll see a little twitch around the mouth that reminds me of Diana, but he looks more like Diana's sisters, the red-headed sisters. He's got more of them. William is pure Spencer in look, and he looks so much like Charles Earl Spencer, it's rather uncanny. Less hair, unfortunately. But he has a lot of that Spencer side, and also of Diana's father. So if Johnny Thompson was a secret son of the king, he would have had to have come via Diana, wouldn't he, to have inherited those Spencer genes, but I think that might be a little bit far-fetched. But Henry Hazel said, doesn't Major Johnny remind you of Prince William, not only the overall facial structure and features, but also his manner in public, that solid calmness? Wonderful. Actually, when I cobbled together that montage of Johnny Thompson, I found a video with his speaking voice, and I was quite surprised because I had always assumed that he was going to have a Scottish brogue, you know, some very masculine, deep baritone or bass Scottish brogue. But he didn't. It was actually rather a genteel British accent, not aristocratic, but just kind of rather genteel. And I'm afraid it didn't feed the fantasy of this sort of, I love Scotsman. Johnny has a reassuring presence, doesn't he? He is solid. Watch it. He has a solidity. No, I'm not going to go there. He has a solid presence, born out of experience. He has a long military history for his age, a long military and royal association, and he knows his stuff, and that is where his assured presence emanates from. And it's in contrast to the Duke of Sussex and his sort of skittish, dilettante approach and nature to service and duty. And the breadth of knowledge that somebody like Johnny, as the king's equerry, has is quite mind-blowing. For those of you that don't know, an equerry has a tenureship of 3 years, so they come and go quickly. But of course, Johnny Thompson is likely to have an association with royalty over many years in various capacities and in different roles. But an equerry is a 3-year appointment. But the breadth of experience that he already has and is gaining and will go on to know is astonishing. It puts me in mind of Alistair Bruce, who I was at a gathering with last year, and he was telling us about all his functions. And he's the governor of Edinburgh Castle and has other royal responsibilities and is a repository. These people are the repositories. They are the reference point for royalty, for all the courtiers, and some of the information and knowledge that they need to have at their disposal is arcane, is in rare usage, is intricate, and we have to be very grateful for these kind of characters, because they are the cogs in the machine that keep it turning. They are the oil on the cogs of the machine. Do you see, my dear, that keep things lubricated? So I'm very grateful for them. But William's been in for it this week, hasn't he? Trial by social media. I'm getting sick of all this. This time it was about the Lionesses, the female football team playing down under. And he's been coming in for criticism because he didn't attend. And I ask you, I mean, I'm not a fan of football as it goes, but I realise how popular football is. It's loved by many people in this nation. But really, do we have to have members of the royal family travelling to the other side of the planet to support a football match? The whole thing bores me to tears, to be quite honest with you, my dear, and exercises me. I realise he is president of the Football Association, but for one thing, this is the first time that a senior England team have reached the World Cup final for 57 years, or so I'm told. So while I realise it's a rare occasion and it would be lovely if he was there, there is no modern precedent for a Prince of Wales or an heir apparent making that sort of sacrifice to his schedule to turn up for such a match. We all know that he would have loved to have been there. It's also holiday month. It's August. So it's interrupting his own personal time for something that isn't absolutely crucial. It's also eco-responsibilities that he has. He has examples to set, and jumping onto an aircraft with full security detail for a sojourn to the other side of the planet isn't really cricket, is it, my dear? He did send an apology with Charlotte at his side, but that wasn't good enough. That sent social media into all kinds of tantrums, and it's just mischief making. It's just mischief making from this culture of outrage for the sake of it. Some of us, including moi, get outraged, but over things that really matter, not over trivialities, such as not turning up to see a bunch of lesbians kicking a ball around. It's been boring enough watching groups of blokes kicking the ball around year after year after year. Boring, boring, boring. Now we've got to suffer Sheilas getting up to the same activity as well, I ask you. And on the subject of William and Diana and their brilliant blue eyes, I'm slightly segueing here, but my mother has brilliant blue eyes. She has the most stunning blue eyes. So do some of my siblings. It skipped me and I got green ones, but they got beautiful blue eyes, the same colour as this gem that is slightly concealed, not intentionally, but in real life it is incredibly dazzling, radiant and full of fire. It is the most beautiful stone, and it is one of the rare occasions that I am wearing a precious stone. This is a real gem. Usually I come to you with rhinestones and crystals and paste and whatever I can afford to scrape up from the charity shops, my dear. I got it for my mum. She hasn't received it yet, so it's on loan. I've just taken it out of the box to show you and share with you, my dears, but it's going straight back in the box to be presented to her in celebration of 10 years, because 10 years ago she was diagnosed with cancer. She had minor surgery, and then she had to prepare herself for many months of grueling chemotherapy and radiotherapy. In between the surgery and the treatment, I took her out for a night in Camden, which is my neck of the woods, to the Roundhouse in Camden. I might have mentioned it in previous videos, but I took her to go and see Blondie. We both love Blondie. And Debbie Harry. Debbie Harry was in her early 70s. She was as fantastic as when she was in her early 30s. Just incredible performer. Incredible voice she had then. And one of the highlights towards the end was the song Dreaming, and it became our kind of anthem, if you will, and it became a sort of wish and a prayer. We were dreaming of her getting better and having a speedy recovery, and we were blessed because she did go through it, but she did recover, and she's been very well, and all is clear and all is fine and all is good. So I think it's very important to take the time to celebrate those moments, because when you get those kind of diagnoses in the family and it hits you, you realise, if you didn't already, how precious every moment is, how precious life is. So I think it's important to celebrate the triumphs and those landmark anniversaries. And this is round about 10 years. I think it was in July when we went to see Blondie. July, it must have been 2013, in the July. And I think she began the treatment round about September time. So it was all this kind of time of year. So I just thought I would share that with you and let you see the gem. But on to other subjects. Mystic Meadows Homestead says, please do a video comparing the Harkles to the Scottish play written by the original Big Willie. Which is very droll, my dear. I enjoyed that. For those not au fait, the Big Willie she's referring to is William Shakespeare, and the Scottish play is Macbeth, which I think is the first play that I ever was involved in studying in any depth while I was in education. And we did a performance of it, and I can remember I was really jealous of the gal that was cast as Lady Macbeth. I would have loved to have played her. And you know, back in the Jacobean times, Elizabethan times, all the roles were played by men, regardless. How fabulous. I would have loved to have played Lady Macbeth. But lots of comments come through comparing royal behaviour and the dramas of the last few years to various Shakespeare plays, not just Macbeth, although that is one that is often mooted. And I thought it was interesting because another comment popped up, and this time it wasn't comparing the Harkles or Meghan to Lady Macbeth, but Catherine, and I thought it was worth reading out. Because I'm going to be looking at the concept of good and evil, just some of the interesting questions that throws up. This comment was from Tortemise, who says, I've always thought that Catherine had a drop of Lady Macbeth's blood in her. Unlike Lady M, I know Catherine will not ever fall apart at the seams. She is an ardent protector of the realm and her family's place in it. And I agree with you, my dear. She does have that drop of steel. It's not to say that she has the Machiavellian evil or cunning, shall we say, of a Lady Macbeth, or even just ambition. But she does have that drop of steel. I've said myself that I see more and more of it as she has progressed into her role as the Princess of Wales. It's tangible and it's exciting. And I agree with those who say that her finest moments are yet to come, and that she's not one of those royals that is a sort of hard hitter with any immediacy, but her inner steel, her inner fire, reveals itself. There's a line that I drop into the broadcast quite frequently, a Lady Macbeth line. Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. I love that line. And it's been on my mind quite a lot this week. The incongruence between the appearance and what's behind it, whether that's a good appearance or a bad appearance, and the story behind it, the real true character of the person and what's going on. It's rather fascinating, and it's been occupying my mind because of what's been going on in the press and in the courtrooms here in the kingdom. If you live abroad, you might not be familiar with the name Lucy Letby. Lucy Letby is a 33-year-old neonatal nurse who has just been jailed for life. She is one of the very few in the kingdom that was issued with a whole life order. There's no chance of release ever for her heinous crimes. She is an infanticidist. She's been found guilty of the murder of 7 newborn babies, the murder and torture of babies that were in her care, 7 out of hundreds, 7 other attempted murders. You know, this is just possibly the tip of the iceberg. It could be any number, to be perfectly honest with you. Heinous crimes. She goes down with the very worst of humanity. And it's shocked the nation, and because of the image that she gave off to her friends and family and colleagues, some of her colleagues began to get suspicions back in the early days, but no one believed the colleagues because she came across as a gentle soul. Her friends say, think of the kindest, softest, gentlest character you could, that has never done or said anything out of line for her entire life. She made that impression on friends who seem well adjusted and seem savvy in any other way. Her parents are in denial. They don't seem to be able to come to terms with the fact that their daughter is a monster. And I don't know whether she is a sociopath, a sociopathic, narcissist, if she has mental difficulties, disturbances, if she has Munchausen syndrome, or a combination of any or all of those things, or if she is just pure unadulterated evil. I don't know at this point in time. I am not one that can scrutinise these kind of cases. I find it too harrowing. I can only just glancingly touch upon the facts. I find it too harrowing It stays with me in a way that I can't shake off. I can look over, gruesome crimes of centuries past, historic ages, but nothing in recent times when the grief is still raw with friends, family and parents. It will always be raw grief for those parents and for the families of those babies. And like many of you, I'm sure, I can't look at it for very long, or it becomes too overwhelming to even consider. So I'm not going into depth about any of that, but what's been occupying my mind and fascinating me is just the facade, because it makes you think, doesn't it? When you think that you know somebody, as their friends and family do, they think they know her so very well that even after this guilty verdict, some of her best friends are saying they still won't believe that she is guilty of these crimes unless she was to turn around herself and admit to these crimes. She denies all of these crimes. She wouldn't even come to court to face her sentence. But it boggles the mind, and it makes you think of how we are all in some way strangers to each other and ourselves, aren't we? Now, please do not misunderstand me. Don't get your knickers in a twist. I'm not making a direct comparison between the heinous evil of a Lucy Letby and anyone else, whether that's Meghan, Catherine, you or me. No, my dear. We don't all harbour those kind of sinister intentions, motives and desires in any way. But we all do have an inner dialogue that is different to what we present to the world, isn't it? And even those of us like myself who consider themselves straight up, if I don't like you, I will 9 times out of 10 tell you, and even if I'm not telling you for the 1 out of 10 times, I will be showing you my displeasure. I consider myself, rather an open book in that circumstance. But for those of you who think that you are totally and utterly what you appear to be on the outside, let me ask you, would you be comfortable if our artificial intelligence comes up with a device that can fill in the gaps of your conversation and your sentence by informing the person you're speaking with your thoughts that are running alongside what you're saying, what you're really thinking, the thoughts behind the thoughts, even the ones that you yourself push to the recesses of your mind in conversation with your loved ones, your spouse, your best friend, your anything, your children, acquaintances, your favourite Aunt Bessie, who's worth 5 million quid and almost at death's door but not quite, and you're the favourite niece and she's leaving it to you. I'm just trying to whip up some scenarios where you might not want your thoughts read. I'm not talking about hideously dark evil thoughts, although some of them might be there, but I'm just talking about, could you really say hand on your heart that you wouldn't mind anybody and everybody in your life knowing what's going on underneath what we show, what we display? I certainly wouldn't mind. I'd be happy to tell you that as honest and as frank a person as I think I am, and as candid, I wouldn't necessarily want those thoughts known, my dear. I'm using a wicked creature such as Lucy Letby as an extreme example to point you in the direction of what I'm speaking of when I say, look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. Because I use that as a warning for everybody, not just those that you consider baddies, but also that you might consider the heroes or the goodies of the piece, whichever side of the lollipop you happen to be sucking. Whichever side. I think it's always healthy to realise that what's presented on the surface, whether it's a member of the royal family who you greatly admire or one that you greatly disparage, we all have an inner world that is quite different, alien even, to anything that you can conceive of and is deftly concealed. And seeing as we've touched on the subject of Shakespeare today, I'm going to end with an extract from Richard II, because it was mentioned by a fruit basketeer, Claudia or Claudia Deathlefs, a very unusual surname there, Claudia Deathlefs. And you left me the first part of a speech from Richard II, which is in praise of England and is a sort of patriotic rhetoric involving England and everything to be proud of to do with England. And when I looked it up, I looked at the second half, which you didn't include. And it's a very interesting piece because the second half of it disparages England. It sort of turns it round and talks about how England is becoming an apologist, ashamed of itself and belittling itself with an almost treasonal kind of discord. And it struck a chord with me because I have mixed emotions about this land that I love so very much. You know how much I adore the kingdom and the England that I know, but I'm also aware that we are in this peculiar point in time that England is slowly becoming something different and being inherited by people who don't treasure and cherish and accept its history. This is what we see all around us going on, isn't it? In much of the Western world, but especially in England. So I'm going to read it out as a reminder that nothing is new under the sun, and that the other big Willie, Willie Shakespeare, was on it many centuries ago. But that's it for today's show, so I thank you for indulging my thoughts, thank you for your company, and I look forward to seeing you in the next broadcast. Do leave me a juicy comment, and my tip jar, privy purse, is in the description box. Thank you very much, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye-bye, my dears, and toodle pip. This royal throne of kings, this sceptred isle, this earth of majesty, this seat of Mars, this other Eden, demi-paradise, this fortress built by nature for herself against infection and the land of war, this happy breed of men, this little world, this precious stone set in the silver sea, which serves it in the office of a wall or as a moat defensive to a house. Against the envy of less happier lands, this blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England. This land of such dear souls, this dear, dear land, dear for her reputation through the world, is now leased out. I die pronouncing it. Like to a tenement or pelting farm. England, bound in with the triumphant sea whose rocky shore beats back the envious siege of watery Neptune, is now bound in with shame. With inky blots and rotten parchment bonds. That England that was wont to conquer others hath made a shameful conquest of itself. Ah, would the scandal vanish with my life, how happy then were my ensuing death!